How do you spot someone who isn't wealthy? Today, it might be wired headphones or shopping at Menards, but in the 80s, it was their food. And trust me, it was still packed with flavor. Let me show you the best recipes from back then. Salmon en croûte were a pretty easy salmon pastry to make. By the way, the irony of starting a video about how you ate if you weren't loaded with salmon isn't lost on me, but a fact might be lost on you. Trust me. Even I got surprised when I heard that salmon actually didn't used to be considered expensive, luxurious, or even something reserved for the upper class. It was one of the most common catches you could expect out in the waters and coasts, and a lot of people pretty much lived exclusively off of the flaky fish. With the croûte, the idea to turn into a pastry was something we got from those middle-class dinner parties in the 80s that really loved an all-continental menu. Plus, you had the New York Times cookbook, or the Bon Appetit series that would make these kinds of dishes spread in the minds of the people, introducing them to new kinds of techniques that were considered classics in French. The filling was typically made with dill and cream cheese, but it worked really well to balance the extra fattiness you got from the salmon. With a layer of mushrooms, a creamy sauce, and amazing spinach, you had yourself a full-on salmon puff pastry that wouldn't disappoint in any way. So this Tex-Mex comfort dish was known as a Mexican chicken casserole. The layers of shredded chicken here went perfectly with the combination of tortillas and cheese, and the spicy sauce that people used was really the biggest delight here. It went incredibly well with the cream of mushroom soup, which was something that had recently begun to make a name for itself in the 80s. It had so many layers of chewy and soft tortillas that had been drenched perfectly in the sauce, and that made it a delicious casserole that was perfect for all kinds of situations. This was the kind of thing that was practical and kid-friendly enough that you could serve it as a Wednesday dinner, but also something that had enough pull with a crowd that you could take it to a potluck as well. The prep was really easy. It was a dish that was reheatable too, so you never had to worry too much about transporting it or carrying it, so it was the perfect thing for families that relied on grocery store ingredients for dinner. So with garlic prawns, it's like you can't ever really go wrong with them, right? I mean, I just know what I'm craving when I get out and go for a seafood restaurant. One of the must-have appetizers always has to be garlic prawns, and how could it not be? If you're anything like that, then you know exactly why this dish belongs here. It has got flavor for days. The garlic prawns are also so buttery smooth, and it achieves both of those things by being sautéed in butter and olive oil along with more minced garlic than is probably advisable by either your doctor or your dentist. People finish it up with some white wine and parsley, but the really briny prawns combined with the super aromatic garlic and butter creates a dish that just ticks every box imaginable. Coastal seafood restaurants all the way from Louisiana to California couldn't get enough of the stuff, and it was also a big part of surf and turf culture. In the 80s, it was always one of the most affordable dinner options you could go for, and that's what made it stick around as a seafood staple. If you wanted to keep it super simple and short, then you had to get yourself involved with all the magic, wonder, and practicality of a brie and ham croissant sandwich. Maybe it's not some kind of sub or anything, but it's definitely a sandwich that could make a name for itself on any humble dinner table. So here, you honestly have some pretty textbook stuff that should, and probably already is in your pantry. You got your Dijon mustard, can't ever get enough of that, some fig jam, a little bit of honey for that extra oomph, and then just the right amount of black olives. These flavors were put there so they would bounce off of the natural smokiness of the ha, and I think they did a really good job. Plus, brie is a kind of cheese where you kind of have to make it work. You can't just slap it on there like cheddar, you know? Despite the incredible usage pasta bakes had throughout a majority of the 20th century, they actually were not something that managed to last too long into the 2000s. Back in the height of its popularity, though, it was known for being one of the best layered recipes you could make. You had yourself a cascading symphony of golden, bubbling cheese, earthy and nutritious vegetables, and some of the nicest and most savory bits of meat you probably have ever had in a pasta. The texture here was really something to behold. You had yourself an Italian-American ziti that was going more and more towards tangy tomato notes instead of the usual herbal taste that people were associating with pasta seasonings. It's something that a lot of people loved an incredible amount about Italian-American cooking, and it was one of the most reliable and dependable middle-class meals throughout the East Coast. It was not just known for being a really cheesy East Coast staple either. It was really popular in certain Midwestern regions as well as the southern expanse of America. That's just because so much of the materials and ingredients that were used in this recipe were so locally available over there, despite how Italian-American cooking had not completely made a reputation for itself there by the 80s. You also had an incredible amount of variation here. You could throw in tuna, ground beef, or even chicken and still get the same flavors, but with the kind of meat you love to have instead. Beef fajitas are basically one of the absolute top of Tex-Mex cuisine and culture. All the way back in the 70s and 80s, this dish was one of the easiest ways to get an entire audience of people satisfied, full and content on their way back home. It actually was made using one of the cheapest kinds of steak cuts possible, and that was skirt steak. It was a cut that butchers never preferred. Honestly, half of them would just donate it to charity, give it away, or flat out throw it because the thing would literally never sell. It was one of the cheapest beef cuts you could get, and in the 80s you could get it for as little as $1. Skirt steak started blowing up thanks to the way fajitas did so much for its public reputation. Even in the 80s, you could pretty much find this for a couple of dollars on any street corner or grocery store. You also could customize it to the moon and as much as you wanted. Most people were pretty satisfied with just adding in some marinade magic and stuff like peppers, extravagant kinds of chilies or homemade salsas, but you could always just do whatever tickles your fancy and have a nice, affordable, and delicious midday lunch on your hands for almost no effort. Cajun blackened fish is something you could easily take off in the 20th century throughout most decades, but the seeds for its later-on success at the hands of chefs like Paul Prudhomme were sown all the way back in the 80s. You might actually still remember Paul's Paul, Louisiana kitchen in New Orleans, but you might not know that one of the biggest standouts, the Cajun blackened fish, was something you really wouldn't ever hear about or see anything of well before the 80s. Red fish was a lot like skirt steak in that it was one of the cheapest kinds of fish you could ever find. But the star of the show was entirely the bold Cajun spice blend that took center stage here and made the spotlight its own. It was simple, really. It was never anything too exquisite or something you could never source locally, something where availability and accessibility were a real issue. You had paprika, cayenne, garlic powder, and thyme, and that was all stuff that most people's cabinets had in abundance. It also didn't exactly need any kind of equipment. You just needed a trustable cast iron skillet that's seen better days. Those are the ones that give you the real flavor. Anyway, for almost about $2, you could get blackened fish at cafeterias and casual seafood joints, and it was a pretty good dish, all things considered. If we really take a look at the 80s, we will find absolutely zero shortage of chicken cordon bleu being served in every dolled-up restaurant you can see. Cluttering up the streets of busy urban hubs like New York and California, these restaurants would pride themselves on being able to recreate, and pretty successfully at that, a wonderfully authentic chicken cordon bleu. You might be just a bit surprised to hear this, but chicken breasts were not really the standard protein in America back then like they are now. Most people were still far too addicted to ground beef to bother sparing a second glance at a humble rooster. Chicken was incredibly economical back then. For about 50 cents or even 29 to 35 cents, you could get yourself some fresh and delicious protein and make a lot of good stuff out of it too. Recipes were abundant, and all the different kinds of cultures and cuisines in America had become a lot more interconnected thanks to the way globalization was panning out. Most home chefs and their kitchens now had full access to reliable and easy chicken recipes that relied on stuff like breadcrumbs and deep frying. With chicken cordon bleu, it was one of the nicest dinners you could back home to, because nothing could beat that fried, stuffed chicken. I'm not too sure how you all feel about pâtés. In the 80s, though, if you wanted a fabulous night out on the town with some glamorous Eastern European cuisine, then all you had to do was go on over to the first French restaurant you could find and go for a plate with some water crackers. One thing about the 80s is that it was probably one of the times in the entire century where, for the first time in a really long time, all people wanted to do was party. I mean, look, it was definitely a transformative phase of life for a lot of people. The wars had just ended, the Depression was settling down, and people were starting to make a bit more sense of their lives again. In the midst of all that, you had folks going back to the workplace, you had folks starting their own workplaces, and you had everyone craving a cocktail party. And what would be a staple at these parties? Chicken patties with water crackers, almost always served with brandy. Interestingly enough, chicken livers were even less popular than chicken breasts were, and they were the kind of thing that was considered really icky food by a lot of people who were not accustomed to it. In fact, if offal cuts were not so popularized during the Depression, I'd say a lot of these dishes wouldn't even get the time of day in America back then. So let's say you did want all the glamour and extravagance of the thrill that comes with spending a nice chunk of your savings on you and yours. Let's say your savings were looking a lot thinner than you had expected them to look by this time of the year. You still want that steak, right? Pork medallions were basically your way out in the 80s if you found yourself in this conundrum, and trust me, this was one financial dilemma that perplexed a lot of people pretty regularly. It was an incredibly satisfying bite too, and it was one of the most brilliant alternatives to seek you could come up with. Why wouldn't it work? Pork tenderloins were really cheap. Beef prices were, on the other hand, inflating more and more. On a constant ascension, with seemingly no signs of stopping, these steaks just weren't making the cut for a lot of people's wallets. Hey, get it? Because it's a cut of beef. Sorry, that was a little corny. Speaking of corn, that was one of the nicest sides you would get with this. You could either get that or switch it out for some vegetables or some mashed potatoes, which really went well with the creamy mushroom sauce people would serve with this. Despite being something that's always been associated heavily with the French, vegetable quiches were actually shown to us Americans as a really elegant and all-American meal that was perfect for Catholic families. See, the reason marketing teams all across the country preyed on vulnerabilities like that is because of some recent sentiments around overfishing, meat consumption, and health concerns that had started to spread throughout America. Naturally, the biggest majority in the country being Catholics, they decided that they really needed some all-vegetable alternatives to typical meat delicacies that they had gotten a bit too used to. Good Housekeeping suggested vegetable quiches as a perfect meatless Friday dish, but a lot of people still weren't convinced. It definitely did well with the women, though. You would find it in ladies' luncheons, tea rooms, brunch menus, and you'd often just see a 30-something woman having a self-care day with a quiche and a salad at her side at some upscale cafe during the afternoon. If you ever find yourself being ever so slightly suspicious of how much we have really borrowed from European cuisine and culinary techniques, you can always take a look at vintage recipes like spinach and ricotta cannelloni and see just how much we actually like French food. See, there's history behind this dish, and I'm going to get into all the contexts and nuances that made cannelloni such a massive hit throughout the United States of America. But first, what even is a cannelloni? It's basically just these sizable pasta tubes that have been generously stuffed with a filling that consists entirely of bubbling cheese, smoky meat, and soft, tender vegetables. These get baked in an all-Italian sauce that actually did take a lot of time getting mainstream in American kitchens. But by the 80s, Italian-American communities had such deep roots in urban cities like New York, New Jersey, and Chicago that baked pasta dishes had become the norm for lunch and dinner in a lot of little pockets of the city. One of the biggest reasons for it becoming such a mainstay was the post-World War Italian immigration. And you know how it goes. Whenever there are people coming in, they bring the interesting things from their country with them. Plus, baked cheesy pastas weren't exactly too far away from casseroles, something that Americans had always been thoroughly and intimately acquainted with. Leek and potato soup was something that had roots that ran just as deep as any hit Italian-American dish, honestly. Leek and potato soup is something that is exclusively European, and it's something you would find all over French and British cuisines, where almost every kind of ingredient that was involved in leek and potato soup was not only cheap, but overly abundant. In America, it had the opposite reputation, which is actually pretty hilarious. You go over there and you'll find people giving away leek and potato soups in lunch cafeterias. You come home and you see it being served in these high-end dining joints and paying nearly top-dollar rates for them. But hey, who am I to judge, right? Doesn't mean I'm not. Anyway, affordable ingredients were the name of the game here. Those potatoes were literally under 5 cents per pound, and leeks were something that were widely available in all kinds of northeastern and midwestern markets. You also had a massive explosion of cream soup craze, and that meant it was a perfect time to dust off this classic. Curried chicken salad was pretty much the nicest mid-century reinvention you could have had. It came in very clutch because, like I said, people were definitely starting to worry about their health and what their consumption habits were doing for it. This was a take on the classic chicken salad, which was something that Americans had been fond of since way back when in the 18th and 19th centuries, but by the 80s, the dish got a complete renovation that did it more than justice. Let's go a bit into the history of this recipe, though, because it's actually bumbled around in many different places. So, see, firstly, you had a lot of the fascination that Americans were having with coronation chicken, which was something that was first invented and prepared for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation all the way in 1953. It had made headlines in more than a few places around the world, and it had a curry dressing that was really similar to this. Everyone obviously wanted to feel the regality that comes with trying something made for a queen, and in this case, the queen. So they hopped on the bandwagon. Then, ladies' luncheons were becoming really popular, and I kind of mentioned them before too. These were always filled with light and airy dishes that were good for you instead of hearty meals that would bloat you and slow you down throughout the day. People loved it for its easy-to-digest nature and amazing flavors, and how it was proving that healthy food didn't have to be bad. Seafood paella, on the other hand, were things that had some pretty historical association with Valencia, Spain, but they made their way to America thanks to a lot of military back and forth. What I mean by that is soldiers would often be stationed all the way in Spain and Latin America, right? Well, what do you think they did there the entire time? Drills, workouts, weapon maintenance, surveillance, and tactical meetings all take up chunks of your day, surely. But you gotta kill a few hours, even if you're a trained SEAL or Marine stationed in Spain. The way most of our veterans would do that was by exploring what the local cuisine had to offer and sampling all kinds of delicacies, and paella actually became one of their all-time favorites. Not only that, since it was such a purely seafood option, it meant that there was an extreme amount of potential for this dish back home. When those soldiers eventually did come back, they obviously brought stories of how good seafood paella and other dishes were with them, and that's more or less how this dish became such a mainstay throughout coastal cities. Our next dish is going to be the perfect bridge between savory and sweet, and if you're a veal fan, then this is one you absolutely need to recreate in your kitchen. These veal cutlets were always pan-fried and simmered in a wine sauce that had been made from Marsala wine, and that was a pretty big deal in wine and gourmet circles, and I'm going to tell you why. Sicily was basically the hometown of wine, and Marsala was essentially a fortified wine from there. What does it mean if a wine is fortified? Well, it's the same as any fortification. You throw a layer or two on top for extra safety, and in this case, safety means more alcoholic content. You would basically mix in extra booze, which could be sherry or port, and it meant that the end result was this really thick, rich, and caramelized wine that had flavors of vanilla and spices laden throughout it, meaning it was one of the best wines to ever serve with savory meat dishes. It was something that was also much more accessible because of Italian immigrants, who, as I told you before, started to come in droves after the war. By now, they had made such a habit of importing the wine that it was something that was familiar to most homegrown American cooks by the 80s, too. Veal Marsala was something that took what French cuisine does best: mix wine with meat to give you a meal you could never imagine yourself. Let's say you had some Marsala or some sherry or any drink of choice lying around, right? Let's say you weren't the biggest supporter of veal, but hey, maybe grilled lamb chops were more up your alley. Yet it seems like, despite how this dish seems so American and pairs up with just about any kind of booze you might have in your cabinets, it was a highly divisive dish. In the 80s, grilled lamb chops weren't exactly something you would save for a special occasion, but hey, they were definitely something to get up and get on the table for. They were also something people associated with fine dining and Sunday dinners and cookout culture more than anything else. I mean, you could get a very exquisite grilled lamb chop served at a fine dining establishment, but you could also just head on over to your neighbor Dave's house and set one up on the grill. The price of these was higher than beef or pork, but most people thought it was worth it. Well, the flip side of this savory coin is that the gamey flavor was something people really did not like about it. More than that, people had just become a bit too tired of such meaty dishes by the 80s, and while the mint jelly side was doing it some favors thanks to how much America had grown to love Jell-O, it wasn't enough to propel it to the top of any era, despite how even today lamb chops are a nationally enjoyed thing. Either way, it was not an upper middle class thing, or something that you would see rich people ordering. It was just something average families went out for when they wanted to treat themselves to something nice. Baked camembert is something that's really unique because it's something that has roots all over the world as well as a lot of flavor to back up that reputation. A soft ripened cheese like camembert paired really well with other cheeses like brie. You may not have heard of camembert ever, but I assure you, this thing has been around since the late half of the 1700s. Traditional French cheesemakers had been using this dish for centuries, and of course when so many came over to America and when Americans began to deep dive into French cuisine, which by the 80s they had explored a fair share of, they definitely wanted to see what the hype was all about. Also, as travel and the world's overall capacity for it advanced and increased, it became a lot easier for traveling traders, merchants, and others who had business outside of the country to go to these places and try their food on their home turf. Naturally, they would begin to come back and spread word, and that would just increase demand for it even more. Camembert was known for how velvety it was, because as a cheese, you would have to look very far and wide to beat this. It went amazing with wine and champagne, especially French white wines, and it was just something that you would get that would make you feel really fancy and like you were having an expensive night out. Stuffed mushrooms during the Depression were the first introduction America had to how mushrooms could even work as a substitute for different kinds of meat. Knowledge that would later on go to dominate our TikTok For You pages with healthy vegan alternatives. From the Depression era, where they were really just a practical substitute to the 80s where they became fancy finger food, it had been a long road. Fresh mushrooms actually went from being something that people would go out into the woods to forage for themselves and their family, to becoming a gourmet food ingredient that people used in all kinds of dishes. Stuffed mushrooms were just the beginning, and they were even a dish that would go inside other dishes and work as a filling, if you can believe that. As far as finger food went, these were really the bomb at cocktail parties, and they were always filled with amazing stuffings like sausage and garlic, crab and cream cheese, or just onion and cheese and breadcrumbs. Gayeng Kao Wan, or also alternatively known as Thai green curry, was this super amazing dish that we got thanks to the rise in Thai immigrants around the 60s and 70s and the general rise in Southeast Asian immigration. All kinds of Thai immigrants wanted to try their hand at skilled labor because, as we all can imagine, immigration is never a cheap process. See, it had a lot to contend with, though. Chinese food and its rise in America was more so something really good occupying a vacuum. There was no contender to Chinese food, so its takeover was largely uninterrupted. Now, a lot of Americans don't really appreciate the stark amount of difference there is in Southeast Asian food. Like if you get Indian food and compare it to Thai food, they're worlds apart. But they both count as Southeast Asian food. So dishes like Thai green curry had a lot to compete with before they started to making a name for itself. The difference was that it had an edge. What Americans were aware of was that the Chinese food they got wasn't exactly super authentic. But when Vietnamese and Thai immigrants came, they prided themselves on serving authentic renditions of dishes like Gayeng Kao Wan. By the 1980s, something like moussaka, an exotic Greek casserole that had to be made with ground lamb, a creamy wine-infused bechamel sauce and eggplants, was actually in really popular demand. Look, be super real with me. Just from that description alone, would you have guessed that this was something middle-class people ate? Because if you ran that back to me, I would think it was something off of the menu of a five-star hotel. Things surprise you, I guess, and what was definitely taking Americans by surprise in the 80s was how much they were enjoying Greek cuisine. Greek diners and restaurants had begun to expand, and they were evolving beyond simple bistros, coffee shops, and little cute dainty establishments on the corner of busy blocks and commercial areas. They were becoming proper Mediterranean eateries and were bringing all sorts of names we are familiar with today, but were rare and new back then. How do you think they got this popular? There was also this really big need for comfort food that was kinda gourmet, kinda casual, and just the right amount of easy. Stuff like lasagna and moussaka fit right into that, and the layers of eggplant and meat and bechamel really worked well for this dish. Plus, it gave people an excuse to try out eggplants. Satay was something that had begun to originate in Southeast Asia, and it was one of the key staple foods we got from Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Pan-Asian restaurants had started to explode just as Greek culture did, and they were actually making peanut butter the IT girl again. See, everyone always did love peanut butter, but absence does make the heart grow fonder. People tried to switch it up with different kinds of jams, but what really scratched the itch wasn't absence, but renovation. And Pan-Asian restaurants were full of it. Their peanut-based satay sauce was a national classic from the get-go, and their teriyaki skewers were amazing. It was a Chinese dish that wasn't heavy like a stir-fry or sluggish like an egg roll that had spent a bit too much time in oil. It was grilled, fresh, and packed with all kinds of protein. So, salmon terrines were like one of the biggest signs that for the average American household that was living paycheck to paycheck, seafood was coming back, and it was back in style. See, the health trends by the 80s had become something of a national buzz topic. It was something that wouldn't really escape anyone's minds, but no one wanted to actually talk about it either, because that would mean throwing out your grocery list for the month and renovating your entire diet. And hey, that's a lot of attachment to rip off and get rid of. Smoked salmon terrine showed people that they actually didn't have to do any of that at all, and that they could simply just relax, cook what they love in a different and healthier way, and have that instead. This was a cold and smooth seafood pate that had been made with fresh salmon, a lot of herbs, and some gelatin so that the shape would hold, but it worked like a charm every single time. Crab cakes were basically these baked patties that consists completely of breadcrumbs, eggs, Old Bay seasonings, Dijon mustard, and lump crab meat, and they would always be served with this really nice tartar sauce. These did so well in Maryland and on both coasts of New York, but by the 80s, they went from being a chill and easy snack to a gourmet trend that was popular in fine dining circles. This is because in the 80s, restaurant chefs began to use not just lump crab meat, but, and really brace yourself for this one, jumbo lump crab meat. You know, it's like when Sonic goes golden or something. Anyway, grocery stores started to sell frozen packages of these, right? And some of the high-end versions even started to have brandy and sherry in the sauce, which made them stand out even more amongst the crowd. The Mid-Atlantic craze for these was something you absolutely could not underestimate, because at any party, cocktail, or just casual cookout or family gathering, the first thing people would serve and ask for were crab cakes. Sole Florentine, on the other hand, was this French-inspired seafood dish that had a lot of sole fillets, which were very delicately handled because otherwise they would be completely ruined. Plus, it was a big part of the fine continental craze that had started dominating people's hearts completely. Florentine were seen as a sign of fine dining, but they weren't priced that way. See, fine dining meant two different things in America. There was, I've taken out a portion of my salary and saved up for this, fine dining, and there was, I'm really feeling something French today, let's head over to Antonio's or Delmonico's. Fine dining. One was middle class, the other had wealth that lasted since their grandpa's days. This dish found itself being on both sides of the line. Gourmet restaurants like Delmonico's would make it for exclusively old money clientele, but lots of EA food places would also serve an affordable but still exquisite and atmospheric version of the dish. Funny Feet ice cream is an ice cream treat shaped like a foot, typically strawberry flavored with a bubblegum toe. This quirky dessert was introduced in the 1980s by Walls, capturing the imagination of children with its unusual shape and playful presentation. Walls strategically positioned this product during a time when novelty ice creams were becoming increasingly popular, aiming to capture a significant share of the market with its innovative design. The ice cream is made from creamy, strawberry-flavored ice cream, molded into the shape of a foot, and topped with a small piece of bubblegum as the big toe. Funny Feet. Ice cream was often enjoyed as a summertime snack or a special treat, providing a playful and refreshing way to cool down. Spinach dip in a bread bowl is a crowd-pleasing appetizer combining creamy spinach dip with a hollowed-out bread loaf, creating an edible serving dish. It is believed to have originated in the United States during the mid-20th century as a clever way to utilize day-old bread. This dish became popular in the US during the 1980s and 1990s, especially at parties and casual get-togethers. The dip, made from spinach, cream cheese, sour cream, mayonnaise, and seasonings, is spooned into the bread bowl, with the surrounding bread chunks used for dipping. The presentation of spinach dip in a bread bowl makes it a fun and interactive experience for guests. The dish is known for its rich, savory flavor, but it can also be easily customized with ingredients like artichokes or bacon for added variety. The plum torte, especially as it rose to fame in the 1980s through a widely shared New York Times recipe, became a symbol of seasonal simplicity and elegance. Its decline in visibility can be attributed to the influx of more exotic and intricate desserts. Yet, there's a resurgence of interest in this minimalist dessert, reflecting a broader trend towards simplicity and seasonality in baking. The plum torte was celebrated not just for its delicious flavor, but for its ability to highlight the plum's natural sweetness, making each bite a blend of tart and sweet. This dessert transcended regional popularity, becoming a cherished recipe among home bakers nationwide. A lesser-known fact about the plum torte is its role in promoting the use of seasonal fruits in desserts, encouraging cooks to think locally and seasonally long before it became a culinary movement. Potato rissoles are yummy patties made from mashed potatoes mixed with a variety of ingredients and then fried until golden and crunchy on the outside. This must have been inspired by rissoles, which are a small croquette or patty made from minced meat or fish, mixed with various ingredients such as onions, herbs, breadcrumbs, and sometimes eggs. Potato rissoles have roots in Europe, where they were a popular way to use up leftover potatoes. By the 1970s, they had become a beloved side dish or even a main course in many American households thanks to their satisfying texture. If you miss that 70s feel and are not afraid to try old recipes, go ahead and make some for yourself. Who else remembers making these with Mom in the kitchen? I miss making those mashed potatoes. Next is this really tasty steak called Steak Diane. Trust me, it has nothing to do with a woman named Diane. Kid Cuisine is a line of frozen meals for children, often featuring cartoon characters on the packaging. Introduced in 1989 by Conagra Foods, these meals provided a balanced, kid-friendly dinner with fun sides like corn or mac and cheese. The meals typically include an entree, a side, a dessert, and sometimes a small toy or game on the packaging, engaging children beyond just the meal. Kid Cuisine offers a variety of options, such as chicken nuggets, mini corn dogs, and pizza, appealing to children's tastes. Kid Cuisine meals are microwavable and easy to prepare, making them a convenient option for busy families. The inclusion of a dessert, such as a brownie or pudding, adds to the appeal of these meals. The variety of options also meant that there was something for every child's taste. Cheese puffs, also known as gougères, are light and airy pastries filled with cheese, making for a deliciously savory treat. This French origin appetizer dates back to the 18th century and is typically made with choux pastry mixed with grated cheese, often Gruyere or Emmental. The dough is piped into small rounds and baked until golden and puffy. The result is a delicate exterior with a cheesy, flavorful interior. They are often served warm, as the cheese filling is best enjoyed when slightly melted. Cheese puffs are particularly popular at parties and wine tastings because they pair wonderfully with various beverages. The combination of crispness and cheesy goodness makes them irresistible. Their light texture and rich taste make them a perfect start to any gathering or a delightful snack, ideal for sharing with friends. Chicken Française, with its light lemony sauce and tender chicken, became a favorite in American homes and restaurants during the 1980s for its elegant yet approachable flavor profile. As culinary trends shifted towards more global flavors, Chicken Française saw a decline in ubiquity but never truly left the hearts of those who grew up with it. Today, this dish stands as a testament to the era's embrace of European-inspired cuisine, offering a comforting, familiar taste that many seek to recreate at home.
Chicken Française was beloved nationwide, capturing the essence of simple ingredients transformed into a sophisticated meal. A common misconception is that chicken Française is overly complex to prepare, yet it remains one of the more accessible gourmet dishes, inviting even novice cooks to explore the richness of its flavors.
If I had a magic wand, I'd definitely bring this one back right after bringing Celery Victor. If you guessed it, the dish was created by Victor Hertzler, a chef at San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel around the early 20th century. The funny thing is, this food has nothing to do with Hawaii. It became popular through author Clarence Edwards, who featured it in his 1914 book, A Bohemian Guide to San Francisco Restaurants. By the 1970s, it made its way into middle-class homes due to the growing interest in gourmet cooking at home. To make this dish, blanch celery in broth and vinegar until tender, then drain and cool. Next, whisk olive oil, vinegar, Dijon mustard, and herbs for the marinade. Now pour over celery and marinate in the fridge for several hours or overnight. Celery Victor was a popular meal loved for its low-calorie content and great taste. I don't know why we stopped making it, but it would be great to have it on our tables again. What do you all think about corn fritters? Jell-O pudding pops are frozen pops made from Jell-O pudding, offering a creamy and smooth texture. These treats come in various flavors, including chocolate, vanilla, and swirl, and were a favorite among kids for their rich taste. Introduced by Jell-O in the 1970s, these pops became a popular frozen dessert option, combining the beloved flavors of Jell-O pudding with the refreshing qualities of a frozen treat. The pops are made by blending Jell-O pudding mix with milk and freezing the mixture into popsicle molds. The result is a creamy, icy pop that melts in your mouth, delivering a burst of flavor with every bite. The idea for these pops stemmed from the popularity of pudding as a comfort food, and Jell-O capitalized on this by creating a frozen version that was easy to enjoy on the go. These treats were also popular at birthday parties, where kids loved the creamy texture and delicious flavors. Chicken liver pate is a smooth and rich spread made from chicken livers, butter, and seasonings, often served with crackers or toast. This elegant appetizer has roots in French cuisine and became popular at upscale gatherings. The pate is prepared by sautéing chicken livers with onions, garlic, and herbs, then blending them with butter and cream until smooth. The result is a luxurious and savory spread with a velvety texture. Chicken liver pate is prized for its depth of flavor and is often garnished with herbs or spices to enhance its taste. This appetizer pairs well with various wines, making it a favorite choice for sophisticated events. It is often accompanied by cornichons or other pickled vegetables, which provide a tangy contrast to the richness of the pate.
Dirt cake, with its playful presentation and rich, creamy taste, captured the imagination of kids and adults alike in the 1980s. This dessert's gradual disappearance from the spotlight can be seen as a move towards healthier, less processed options. However, its nostalgic appeal and the joy it brings to gatherings make it a timeless treat. Dirt cake was more than just a dessert. It was an experience, offering a creative and fun way to enjoy a sweet treat. Its appeal was widespread, creating fond memories at birthday parties and family events across the country. Something not widely known about dirt cake is its adaptability. It can be made in various ways to cater to different dietary needs or preferences, proving that some traditions can evolve while maintaining their core joy.
Steamed pudding brought a touch of old-world charm to 1970s family dinners. Made by steaming a batter of flour, eggs, sugar, and sweat or butter, often with dried fruits and spices, it results in a moist, dense pudding. The slow steaming process ensures the flavors meld together beautifully, creating a rich dessert experience. There are many types of steamed puddings, including Christmas pudding, which is served during the holiday season. There's also spotted dick made with dried fruits. Steamed pudding has origins in British cuisine and was cherished in the 1970s for its rich flavor and nostalgic value. Cookbooks highlighted it as a perfect dessert for special occasions, celebrated for its anticipation and warm, spiced goodness. Have you ever had rabbit stew? Friendly's watermelon roll is a unique ice cream dessert shaped like a watermelon slice, with a watermelon-flavored center, lemon-flavored rind, and chocolate chips as seeds. This refreshing treat was introduced by Friendly's in the 1980s and quickly became a favorite summer dessert. It was part of Friendly's seasonal summer menu, which featured other unique frozen treats as well. The ice cream is crafted to resemble a watermelon, with vibrant colors and realistic detailing that make it visually appealing. Friendly's watermelon roll is made from a combination of watermelon and lemon sherbet, creating a light and fruity flavor. The addition of chocolate chips as seeds adds a touch of sweetness and fun to the dessert, enhancing its playful appearance. Clams Casino is an elegant appetizer made with baked clams topped with a mixture of breadcrumbs, bacon, and bell peppers. This dish originated in the U.S. in the early 20th century, particularly in Rhode Island, where it was created at the Narragansett Pier Casino. The clams are typically topped with a mixture of breadcrumbs, butter, garlic, parsley, and diced bacon, then broiled until golden and crispy. Clams Casino is often served as an appetizer at upscale restaurants and fine dining establishments. The dish was named after the casino at Narragansett Pier, highlighting its connection to elegant dining. The combination of tender clams, crispy bacon, and savory breadcrumbs creates an indulgent appetizer that's well loved for its sophistication and memorable flavor. The dish often features in high-end dining experiences and special occasions.
Chef Paul Prudhomme's blackened redfish, igniting 1980s Cajun cuisine fervor, faced decline due to overfishing concerns, yet sustainable practices have renewed its appeal. Beyond its regional roots, it introduced America to Cajun flavors, remembered for its spicy crust and depth of taste. This dish's revival at home, using sustainable alternatives, continues its legacy. Blackened redfish's intense seasoning and perfect crust crafting are celebrated, embodying fiery satisfaction. It's a testament to the rich cultural tapestry of American cuisine, blending environmental consciousness with culinary tradition.
These delicious pancakes are made from a batter mixed with sweet corn kernels, giving them a tender inside and a golden, crispy exterior. Corn fritters have their roots in Native American cuisine and Southern cooking, where corn has always been a staple ingredient. They became popular in the 1970s as a versatile side dish or snack. Corn fritters are made by mixing flour, baking powder, sugar, and salt with whisked eggs and milk to form a batter. Stir in corn kernels, then fry spoonfuls in hot oil until golden and crispy. They can be enjoyed plain or with a drizzle of honey or syrup for added sweetness. It's giving, "Grandma made me these, and I love it just like I love my potato rissoles." Eggo waffles are waffles filled with syrup or fruit filling, combining the convenience of a waffle with the indulgence of a filled pastry. These quick and easy breakfast items were introduced by Kellogg's in the early 2000s, offering a unique twist on the classic Eggo waffles. The waffles are made by pressing two waffle halves together with a sweet filling inside. Eggo waffles come in a variety of flavors, including blueberry, strawberry, and maple syrup, providing a range of options to suit different tastes. The filled waffles are cooked until crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. Eggo waffles were often enjoyed as a quick and easy breakfast option, perfect for busy mornings or lazy weekends. Hawaiian cheese log. This festive cheese log, introduced in the 1960s, combines cream cheese, crushed pineapple, and chopped nuts, often rolled in shredded coconut to enhance its tropical flair. It reflects the mid-century American fascination with Hawaiian culture and exotic flavors. Typically served at gatherings and holiday parties, the Hawaiian cheese log offers a sweet and savory experience that complements a variety of crackers and bread. The combination of creamy cheese, sweet pineapple, and the crunch of nuts coated in coconut provided a rich textural contrast. This dish was especially popular for its ease of preparation and festive appearance, making it a favored choice for entertaining.
Hot buttered Cheerios, a simple yet ingenious snack, turned a breakfast cereal into a savory treat, showcasing the versatility of pantry staples during the 1980s. While they might have faded from the mainstream, there's a growing interest in revisiting such straightforward, comforting recipes. This snack's appeal lies in its simplicity and the transformation of a familiar breakfast item into something novel and satisfying for any time of day. Hot buttered Cheerios were a hit across the nation, proving that great flavors don't always come from complex recipes. Not many know that this snack originated from a desire to repurpose breakfast cereal in a fun, tasty way, demonstrating the era's knack for culinary creativity. The common misconception that hot buttered Cheerios are bland is quickly dispelled once the rich, toasty, and slightly salty flavors hit your palate.
This vibrant and tangy dish added a punch of flavor to 1970s spreads. It features pickled herring mixed with diced apples, onions, beets, and potatoes in a creamy dressing of mayonnaise and sour cream. Herring salad, also called herring under a fur coat or shuba, has roots in Northern and Eastern European cuisine. The addition of vegetables and a creamy dressing makes it both visually appealing and flavorful. It became popular in the U.S. in the 1970s at potlucks and family gatherings. The salad was often featured in cooking magazines as a bold and sophisticated dish for entertaining. No wonder Russians see it as one of the best salads ever. Placed side by side with steamed pudding, I don't know which one I'd choose. Which would you go for? Fat Frog ice cream bars are whimsical green frog-shaped ice cream bars, typically lime-flavored with gumball eyes. These playful treats were introduced by HB Ice Cream in the 1980s and were popular for their fun appearance and refreshing taste. They were marketed as part of a range of animal-themed ice creams by HB, with other options including fish and dinosaurs. The bars are made from creamy lime-flavored ice cream and have two gumballs as eyes, which add a fun element for kids to enjoy. Fat Frog ice cream bars were often found in ice cream trucks and at convenience stores. These bars were enjoyed as a refreshing treat on summer days or as a playful snack at parties, providing a burst of citrus flavor and a smile for those who enjoyed them. Deviled ham spread is a savory and creamy spread made from ham and various seasonings, typically served on crackers or bread. The term deviled originally referred to the addition of spicy or zesty ingredients, which gave the spread its distinctive flavor. This classic appetizer originated in the United States in the late 19th century and gained popularity for its versatility and ease of preparation. The spread is made from finely ground ham mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, and spices, creating a tangy and flavorful mixture. Deviled ham spread is often enjoyed as a snack or party food, where it can be served alongside various accompaniments. The name deviled refers to the addition of spices or heat, which gives the spread its distinctive kick. Vol au vent, representing 1980s fine dining elegance, saw diminished popularity with casual dining trends. The revival of this pastry reflects a growing appreciation for culinary arts and a desire to reconnect with sophisticated dining traditions. Yet, a resurgence in appreciation for classic techniques is bringing it back. Esteemed for its flaky pastry and luxurious fillings, vol au vent symbolized sophisticated gatherings. Home creation recaptures this past elegance, offering insights into the art of pastry. Its name, meaning windblown, aptly describes its light texture. This dish underscores the enduring appeal of traditional culinary arts, blending skill with the beauty of presentation, inviting modern diners to experience a taste of 1980s refinement. Steak Diane is a retro classic that brought a touch of restaurant elegance to home kitchens in the 1970s. It is said to have originated in the 1950s. By the 1970s, Steak Diane had made its way into home kitchens, celebrated for its dramatic preparation and luxurious flavors. How? Well, a little bird told me that New York chef Beniamino Schiavone thought it was a bright idea to name this meal after Diana, the goddess of the hunt, to attract high society diners. I guess it worked. Steak Diane was made with steaks, shallots, Dijon mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and heavy cream. If you've never had these, you're missing out on something. And if you did, would you want to try it again? I'd travel back in time for it and maybe grab the chicken Marengo on my way back. Swedish meatballs, or köttbullar, are small, flavorful meatballs served in a creamy gravy, often paired with lingonberry jam and mashed potatoes. This classic dish from Sweden became internationally popular, partly thanks to IKEA's food court. Swedish meatballs trace their origins back to the early 18th century, inspired by a recipe brought back from Turkey by King Charles VII. These meatballs are typically made with a mix of ground beef and pork, seasoned with onions, allspice, and white pepper. They're browned, then simmered in a rich, creamy gravy made from butter, flour, beef broth, and cream. The cozy flavor and connection to Swedish culture make them beloved. Despite their popularity, some may not know that Swedish meatballs are often part of the traditional Swedish Christmas table, known as julbord.
The Impossible Pie, emblematic of 1980s innovation, fascinated with its self-forming crust, a delightful culinary trick. The recipe's decline was part of a broader shift towards more intricate baking, while its return speaks to a yearning for the comforting, straightforward recipes of the past. As artisanal baking rose, its popularity dipped, yet its simplicity and surprising outcome keep drawing interest back. Universally beloved, it made pie baking accessible, challenging the notion that delicious desserts require complex techniques. This pie is a standout in the impossible recipes family, showcasing the decades' love for kitchen shortcuts. Contrary to the belief that its simplicity undermines its value, the Impossible Pie's delightful taste and unique texture celebrate easy preparation, proving great desserts don't need to be complicated.
This classic seafood soup features plump oysters gently cooked in a rich, milky broth seasoned with butter, onions, and a hint of celery. It has roots in the coastal regions of America, where oysters were plentiful and not so expensive. Historically, oysters were considered food for the poor due to their abundance along the coastlines. People who have roots along the coast or often visited loved ones there appreciate the simple essence of this stew. Made with fresh oysters, milk, salt, pepper, butter, and a touch of green onion, it embodies simplicity at its finest. Oyster stew became especially popular as a festive dish served during the holiday season, particularly on Christmas Eve, in many families of the mid-20th century. Dinner time was epic back then, and I miss it, but not as much as I miss this herring salad.
Salmon roulets, blending fresh and smoked salmon into a sophisticated 1980s appetizer, sees a renaissance among charcuterie enthusiasts. Its simplicity and communal serving made it a favorite, bridging regional tastes with its universal appeal. Home preparation invites a revival of this gourmet elegance, showcasing the timeless charm of well-crafted dishes. Adaptable to various fish, it exemplifies culinary versatility. Contrary to the belief of complexity, salmon roulets are accessible, elevating the appetizer experience with straightforward preparation, embodying the shared joy of refined yet approachable cuisine.
This stew features tender rabbit meat slow-cooked with vegetables and broth, perfect for chilly evenings. Originating from European peasant cuisine, it used available game meat. Rabbit meat was often preferred for its lean quality and delicate flavor, making it a versatile choice for stews. By the 1970s, it was beloved in American homes for its rich flavor and rustic appeal. In Greece, especially on Crete and Icaria, rabbit stew is a celebrated dish, often made with local game meats. In Slovenia, rabbit meat is recommended for babies starting solids due to minimal antibiotic use and its natural taste. Though rabbits are now often pets, making them less popular as food, for the adventurous, start by browning the rabbit pieces in a pot and adding seasoning. It's perfection on a plate, much like bouillabaisse. Pudding roll-ups were a novel frozen dessert introduced in the mid-1980s by the Fruit Roll-Ups brand, known for their innovation in snack foods. These treats combine the chewy texture of fruit roll-ups with the creamy sweetness of pudding, creating a unique and delightful snack. The idea originated in the United States, blending traditional pudding recipes with the convenience of ready-to-eat snacks. The primary ingredients included sugar, corn syrup, gelatin, and various flavorings to create different pudding flavors like chocolate, vanilla, and butterscotch. The preparation involved cooking the pudding mixture, spreading it thinly on sheets, and allowing it to set before rolling it up into bite-sized treats. This creative dessert was packaged in individual servings, making it a popular choice for children's snacks and lunchbox treats. The combination of textures and flavors provided a fun and delicious eating experience. This luxurious dish is made with lots of fish and shellfish simmered in a fragrant broth of tomatoes, garlic, onions, leeks, fennel, and saffron. Bouillabaisse has its roots in the port city of Marseille, where fishermen would make this stew using the bony rockfish they couldn't sell at the market. The dish's name derives from the French words bouillir, to boil, and abaisser, to reduce, reflecting the cooking method. It became famous internationally as a symbol of French cuisine, with its complex flavors made by combining onions, leeks, garlic, and fennel in olive oil until soft and fragrant. If you make this, would you invite me over? Here's the one meal I really want back: borscht. Morton honey buns were a beloved frozen pastry that emerged in the late 1960s, produced by Morton Frozen Foods, a pioneer in the frozen food industry. These buns were made from a sweet yeast-based dough infused with honey, which gave them their characteristic flavor and moist texture. The dough was rolled out, cut into individual buns, and baked until golden brown. After baking, the buns were glazed with a honey and sugar mixture, adding a glossy, sweet finish. This product was designed for convenience, allowing consumers to quickly heat and enjoy a fresh-tasting pastry without the effort of baking from scratch. Morton honey buns were particularly popular as a breakfast item or a quick snack, appreciated for their rich taste and ease of preparation. The specific combination of honey and dough made them a distinctive treat during their time. Now, onto some more unusual 70s food. Let's bring back roast goose. Roast goose is a magnificent and festive dish that graced many holiday tables in the 1970s. This succulent bird features crispy skin and tender, flavorful meat, often accompanied by rich gravy and traditional sides. It has a long history in European cuisine, especially in Germany and Britain, as a traditional Christmas dish. Economically, using geese as a main dish and selling them as food was a smart decision. They were larger than chickens, so a whole family could feed on one of them, so long before turkey took over, there was a goose. Okay, how about rabbit fricassee? Stauffer's Welsh rarebit is a frozen version of the classic Welsh dish, consisting of a cheese sauce poured over toasted bread. This rich and savory dish was introduced by Stauffer's in the mid-20th century, providing a quick and indulgent meal option for cheese lovers. The dish is a take on a traditional Welsh recipe that dates back to the 18th century, known for its comforting blend of cheese and bread. It's made from a blend of cheese, butter, cream, and seasonings, creating a smooth and flavorful sauce that is poured over slices of toasted bread. The dish is typically prepared in the oven or microwave, allowing for easy preparation and serving. Stauffer's Welsh rarebit is often enjoyed as a lunch or dinner entree, offering a comforting and hearty option that pairs well with a variety of sides, such as salad or vegetables. Fun fact: fricassee is not a name in itself. Instead, it is a cooking method that involves braising meat in a creamy sauce. The sauce typically includes cream or a mixture of broth and cream, thickened with flour or egg yolks. This stew is made with tender rabbit pieces simmered in a creamy white sauce with mushrooms, onions, and herbs. Rabbit fricassee has roots in French cuisine and became beloved in 1970s America for its rich taste and tender meat. It was featured in gourmet cookbooks like Mrs. Benjamin Chew Howard's 50 Years in a Maryland Kitchen. This popular classic Maryland cookbook was printed and reprinted over the years, with a revised edition coming out sometime in the 1940s, which was reprinted in the 80s. The rabbit was a popular choice among monks during Lent because it was classified as a type of fish, permitting its consumption. Rabbit meat, known for its all-white texture, looks like chicken, but with a consistency similar to pork. Just me then! In the heart of the 1980s, pudding pops were the go-to frozen treat, combining the creamy richness of pudding with the cool refreshment of an ice pop. Their disappearance left a void in summer snacking, but there's a stirring nostalgia to bring them back, tapping into the craving for simpler, joy-filled foods of yesteryears.
Today, while the original branded pudding pops are off the shelves, the spirit of this beloved treat lives on through homemade versions, allowing for a personalized touch to this classic snack. Pudding pops weren't just memorable for their taste, but also for the way they made a simple pudding feel like a luxurious treat. A common misconception is that they were just frozen pudding. In reality, their texture and flavor were uniquely tailored to create a perfect frozen snack.
Funny Feet ice cream is an ice cream treat shaped like a foot, typically strawberry-flavored with a bubblegum toe. This quirky dessert was introduced in the 1980s by Walls, capturing the imagination of children with its unusual shape and playful presentation. Walls strategically positioned this product during a time when novelty ice creams were becoming increasingly popular, aiming to capture a significant share of the market with its innovative design. The ice cream is made from creamy, strawberry-flavored ice cream, molded into the shape of a foot, and topped with a small piece of bubble gum as the big toe. Funny Feet. Ice cream was often enjoyed as a summertime snack or a special treat, providing a playful and refreshing way to cool down. That brings our middle-class food favorites list to an end. Which food stood out to you the most? Comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe.